I call to order the October 2021 legislative meeting of Media Borough Council. Please stand and join me in the salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, all. We have quite a few people here tonight. Some of you in person, some of you perhaps at home. All are welcome. Tonight we're going to start off with a happy ceremony, followed by a happy recognition ceremony. So, as the Chinese say, double happiness. The first thing is a swearing-in ceremony. We have two of our members of our police department will be sworn in tonight, one as a sergeant, the other one as a lieutenant. They, aside from being excellent members of our excellent department, they also share something else, a first name. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours for the swearing-in ceremony.
We'll make the school bus of Egan's.
The whole room. At least half.
Short ones out front. We can see you on television.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, repeat after me. I,
Matthew Egan,
do solemnly swear,
do solemnly swear,
according to law,
according to law,
declare and say
declare and say
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the
of the
Constitution
United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the
of the
Constitution
Commonwealth
of the Commonwealth
of Pennsylvania,
of
and
Pennsylvania,
that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and fully
and fully
and impartially
and impartially
perform the duties
perform the duties
of lieutenant
of lieutenant
for the Borough Media
for the Borough Media
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. And obviously not everyone's here for me, but I'd love to think so. So to introduce my family before my wife Mary, my son Brendan, my daughter Elizabeth, my son Thomas, my daughter Anne Marie, and my son Andrew. Thank you all. I appreciate it. This is a great department, and I'm excited to continue working with the men and women in the department. Thank you.
Thomas, you have anything you want to add?
All right, let's go. 675 Baltimore, 675 Baltimore, Parkway Inn, Route 151, Detective Well-Being, on a Tempest Code, 24-year-old female. Complainant is at work, unable to reach her via phone, front desk, not answering, also possibly related to 9114.
Okay, repeat after me. I
I, Matthew Bruce,
do upon solemn oath,
do upon solemn oath,
according to law,
according to law,
declare and say
declare and say
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the
of the
Constitution
United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the
of the
Constitution
Commonwealth
of the Commonwealth
of Pennsylvania,
of
and
Pennsylvania,
that I will faithfully
and that I will
and
faithfully
impartially
and impartially
perform the duties
perform the
of
duties
sergeant
of sergeant
for the Borough Media
for the Borough
with
Media
fidelity.
with fidelity.
No speech.
Yeah, sure. Well, LT said it best. I appreciate the faith everybody's shown in me, and we have a great group of people here. Appreciate everybody coming out. I wanted to introduce my wife. This is Betsy. My son Dane. I'd like to give him a nice shout out too. He's a Spartan of the month for Springfield Lake. It's a double honorary day today. You got a breakfast at school today, so we're finishing up with the swearing. Again, thank everybody for coming. My parents, my sisters, all my friends here. So thanks so much. There, my sister Caitlin in the back.
Okay.
My dad in the green shirt there. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Normally, at this point of the evening, we would take a break of a couple of minutes to allow the honorees and their family a moment to step outside, take some photographs. But tonight we have something else that we would like to do before we take a little break. Over the past year and a half, there has been some changes in the borough, on the administrative and the departmental end, that frankly we have not had the opportunity to mark as we should. But tonight we're going to tie up some loose ends. We have some folks here who have served the borough long and well that for different reasons decided that they were going to move along elsewhere in life. And we never really had a chance to say thank you for their service. And tonight is their night. Jeff Smith, thank you, Ralph DeRosa, and Lieutenant Johnson. You can all stand up, come to the microphone. We'll do this in order of the mayor picking plaques off of the staff.
All right, Ralph, you're first.
If there's any member of council who wants to come.
Hi, Ralph, how you doing? Are you in there? You ready? Yes. You don't have to repeat it. Presentation from Media Borough to Ralph DeRosa. An appreciation of your 48 years of loyal and dedicated service to the Borough Media, October 21st, 2021. Ralph, thanks for all you've done. I know you mentored Mike. Where's Mike? Oh, the senior thing. Yeah, so.
Mike stepped in, very important.
Okay, here, you have the mic for the next half hour.
Before you get there, Mr. Mayor, just so that folks at home understand the word that you said, what was the number of years of service?
48.
48.
Thank you very much. I don't know everyone, but I've seen your faces before behind those masks. So, but yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure working for the borough for many, many years. So I appreciate everything they've done for me.
Don't go anywhere else.
Ralph, before you sit back down, oh, I'm sorry. You know we did some construction lately down in your old building. Actually built a new highway garage. We had to wait till you left because I know you like just to keep the trucks out there. But during that construction, we recognized that there was an entrance to that garage and it was nameless. And we thought, well, actually Mike Green thought of this, and what other better way than to recognize somebody who has served, who has been down in that road more than anybody. So we like to show everybody our newest street. So, and you can't take this home. Or the police will come here. Congratulations, buddy.
You're right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a fellow here by the name of Jeffrey Smith. And by the way, there already is a street named after him in the borough. So we can't do that, but Mr. Mayor.
Jeff? Thank you for coming back again. Ready? Media Borough presented to Jeffrey A. Smith in appreciation of your 20 years of loyal and dedicated service to the Borough Media, October 21, 2021.
Thank you very much. Thank the council for inviting me back tonight, and especially 21 years ago, taking a chance on a young person as the manager, which I'm not anymore. But anyway, it was a great experience. I really appreciate it. It was just a great place. I want to thank the council, but also thank the staff that made my job easy every day. We have a wonderful, dedicated staff, including Ralph, for 48 years. It made my job easy as a young person coming in. So also, all the boards and commissions, volunteers, residents that make the town what it is, which is really a fantastic place. So just want to thank you both for inviting me back. Last but not least, Lieutenant Johnson. Come on, anybody we should invite, come on. It doesn't matter. Me, you do.
From everybody's hometown, Media Borough, presented to Lieutenant Richard Johnson in appreciation of your 35 years of loyal and dedicated service to Media Borough, October 21, 2021. That's a long speech.
All right, I have some things to say, but it's only going to take for a couple minutes, okay? And first of all, I want to introduce my wife, Cupcake, also known as Alice. All right, so we're going to start. The first thing I'm going to say, even though I'm being recognized by council tonight, I just want to say that what he did was Sergeant Carroll devastated the police department. It did. And a lot of the officers, including myself, are still, you know, it was crushing. It was crushing. So, what are you going to? Just keep that in mind. That's all I'm going to say. And doesn't mean you're bad people. Just it was something. On the good, I want to acknowledge that the council is a very good council. And I would like to encourage the council to be more interactive with the individual officers as it used to be. You remember, Mayor, when you were on council, you knew all the officers. I knew you. You introduced me to the stock market.
Huh?
Poor guy.
Are you happy or not?
Well, $800,000 a head so far. But, and all the council members, you know, Joan Hagan, Jim Whitaker, Susan Murray, Gary Sherwin, all those council members interacted with the police department. I would like to ask you to please try to get to know all these officers, because they're special people.
Yeah,
This is the best police department in the county.
I agree.
Without, oh, thank you. Without any doubt. And I just would like to see you get to know them, whether they're married, whether they have kids, get to know who's working for you in the country. And believe me, they'll do anything for you. If your house is on fire, they're going to run up the stairs to get you out. If it burns them, they'll do it. That's before the fire really gets there. And one other thing is a good note, very good note. Brittany. That was a good choice.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, she's special.
Yeah.
When I went to retire, it was tough going upstairs. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody could help me. Brittany took me in her office and did everything for me. And we got to talking about her family and my family. She's really teach. So, thank you for hiring her, and I guess I'm done.
All right, why don't we take a couple of minutes, folks can filter out of the room, take some photographs, say a few words, and we'll be back. All right, everyone, we're back. In a moment for those who were recognized and those who were promoted. And then after that, they had the opportunity to step outside of the room, have a few moments to take some photographs, say a few words among themselves, and for some of us to say a few words of appreciation. Those of you who regularly watch our meetings would probably note that there was something of an absence. We did not have approval of the minutes. We will not have approval of the minutes tonight. That will come at some later time. We don't have minutes yet to approve. We have public comment and privilege of the floor. So if there's anybody here who wishes to address us, now's the time to do it. We take public comment and privilege of the floor by two means. One is by email, and the other is by in person. Karen, have we received any comments, questions via email before tonight's meeting?
I have one comment from Joanne Williams. She didn't give her address though. It's regarding plastic bag ban. They are dangerous to wildlife and fish. They sit in a dump site forever and do not dissolve. There is too much plastic in the world. They also come from fossil fuels, which helps to continue to destroy our environment.
Is there anything on that email that helps us know where she lives? Not the street address, but whether she lives in the borough median or outside the borough median?
No.
Just as a reminder to those folks who do wish to participate by public comment and privilege of the floor, we are required by state law to get your name and where you live. If anybody who's present, please come to the microphone, tell us who you are, where you live, and what's on your mind.
Robin Lasserson, co-chair of Keep Media Green, 342 West 4th Street. I came to thank Councilperson Kevin Boyer and Mayor Bob McMahon for participating in Keep Media Green's Candidates Forum on Green Space Preservation and Sustainable Development last week. We really appreciated that you participated, and we were gratified that all 10 candidates for Borough Council seats and the Mayor's office participated in the forum, and we received a lot of positive feedback that it was an informative and a productive exchange of ideas for the town. And I wanted to let members of the public know that if you weren't able to join the forum live on Zoom, you can access a recording of it from our website, keepmediagreen.org. That's keepmediagreen.org. And there is also a viewer's guide with the recording that has time signatures for each of the sections if you want to sort of skip to the question that most interested you. And finally, I just wanted to say that Keep Media Green, of course, encourages all residents of Media to get out and vote on Tuesday, November 2nd. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council at this time? Seeing that we don't have any other takers, we'll move on to our reports. The first is the Borough Manager's Report. Brittany Foreman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very brief report, just that November 6th is the dedication for Heritage Park. So please put it on your calendars, November 6th at 2 p.m. And if there's rain, it will be the next day at 2 p.m. on Sunday. That's it.
Thank you. Does any member of council have any questions for our manager at this time? Seeing that there are none, we'll move along to the Borough Engineer's Report. Mr. Mattson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few updates. The work on the armory is substantially complete. We retained the services of DNA Masonry to do some work on one of the buildings that's on our National Historic List. Again, we also have the road program contractor Cipollone, who, depending on the weather, may end up starting at some point within the next few weeks. But we've been in touch with him and with PennDOT to make sure that the schedule lines up, and if he begins work, it happens relatively quickly, so that we don't end up going too deep into the season. There is a few updates I want to provide with the Aqua Projects. It seems like we have Aqua Projects all over town, and it's worthwhile talking about. They have completed the work substantially up on the Ridge Olive area, where they were replacing water main. There is a force main restoration, force main replacement that they're doing all along 3rd Street and West Street, which is underway. That project will be in construction for another 3 weeks or so. But also there was a collapsed sanitary sewer pipe down at Jefferson Street. So they had to bring in a crew, which has most likely caused a disruption of the vehicles moving in and out of the tail end of Jefferson Street on the western side of town. So the crew reported back that they should be wrapping that work up and they're moving as quickly as possible. So they dispatched a second team of people from the same company that was doing the force main work down to Jefferson Street to repair the collapsed force main. So Aqua has a lot of, and again, I'll make sure we coordinate with Linda Bruni to push as much information to our social media and through our newsletter about updates, about timetables and that sort of thing. But since that was affecting our residents, I also want to provide some updates on those projects. Unless there's any other questions, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Matson. Does any member of council have a question for our engineer at this time? Seeing that we have none, we'll move along to the solicitor's report. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report tonight.
Does any member of council have any questions for Mr. Scott at this time? Seeing that we have none, we'll move along to the mayor's report. Mayor McMahon.
Thank you. During last month, we had a total of 666 complaints. I'll just read a couple of them. 50 assisting other police departments, 96 assisting the public, 39 medical emergencies, 32 traffic accidents, and much more here. Again, a total of 666. The other thing I wanted to mention is we are going to have a Veterans Day Parade on 11/11, and it will start at 11/11 on 11/11. So far, we have 10 bands, including Pencrest, and several other local bands that are going to be there. We'll be honoring Afghanistan veterans for obvious reasons. So we want to invite everybody to come out. If by any chance it rains that day and we can't have the parade, we take in and do we go in the media theater and put on a little bit of a show with all the people that come out and so forth. So that's all.
Thank you, Mayor McMahon. Does any member of council have a question for the mayor at this time? Seeing that we have none, we'll move along to the council committee reports. First up, Properties, Public Works, and Fire, Councilman Paul Robinson.
Good evening. I'll try to be as short as possible. As I do each month, as the liaison to the fire company, I encourage our residents and even our non-residents that are interested in serving with the media fire company to stop by the firehouse anytime. They are always looking for volunteer firefighters and or even volunteers to work in the administrative side of the company. Also, currently the finance chair, Mr. Williamson, President Hall, and myself are working with our fire department with regards to putting together, regretfully, the need for paid professional firefighters for one of our shifts. I think we've had a productive meeting so far. We have another one coming up next week. It is our hope that we'll have this wrapped up before the end of the year, so that beginning of January, that we'll be able to have paid firefighters serving the borough during the daytime. It will be an impact on our budget. We on council will have the responsibility to determine if we look at different revenue sources and or look at different cuts in our existing budget. But it is something that regretfully, even the fire company wishes they do not need paid professionals. But in this environment, volunteers are few and far between. Even the state right now is looking at adopting a countywide or an ordinance that would allow an authority to be created for a countywide fire protection, but that is currently in Harrisburg. That's announcement-wise. Regarding agenda items, before I make the motion for this bid, I'm going to ask our engineer to just give a short explanation on the MS4 Vortex system.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Robinson. So, Media Borough was compelled to prepare a supplemental plan under the MS4 plan, which means we are responsible to honor the federal regulations under the Clean Water Act. The MS4 plan is our public outreach, education, and ongoing efforts to raise awareness about the health of our streams and to keep our creeks and waterways clean. This bid item is to satisfy the requirement from the DEP to minimize what they are considering siltation and just natural earth or dirt moving into the streams and creeks. All 48 other municipalities in Delaware County also had to adopt similar measures. The bulk of our efforts are being handled with our street sweeper. So the bulk of the work that we're doing, we get credit for, probably 90% of it. These other efforts are to capture siltation before it goes into our streams. So that's what this is for. This was a budgeted item that was sprung from our 2017 adopted pollutant reduction plans, all words, for the MS4 vortex system.
So in layman's terms, this is really a place where silt will be collected before it goes into our streams, and we will be responsible for maintaining it and cleaning the system before this dirt gets into the streams, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So then the material is removed and weighed and then credited towards our efforts with the Department of Environmental Protection.
Great. And with that, so we have a little bit of an education with what we're making a motion on. I would make a motion that we authorize our manager, our solicitor, and our engineer to prepare and go out to bid for the MS4 system.
Motion's been made. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
There is a second. Is there any call for discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of authorizing Borough Media to go out to bid for the MS4 vortex system, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-39. It's to ratify an emergency stormwater repair for Jewel, I believe is the way it's pronounced, and Sons Incorporated. We had some significant storm water issues on North Olive Street in which it affected residents' properties. We are working on a long-term solution, but right now this is something that really needed to be done as far as making sure that the properties were safe and secure. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve or adopt Resolution 2021-39, ratifying the emergency stormwater repairs for Julie and Sons for the North Olive Street project with not to exceed $50,000.
Second.
Motion's been made. It has been seconded. Is there any call for discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2021-39 with the ratify emergency stormwater repair on Olive Street by Jewel and Sons Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $50,000, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
And next on the agenda is the adoption of a new ordinance, Ordinance 1151 of 2021. It is called a small wireless facilities. This is new technology with the, was it G5 or whatever the new terminology is, that the carriers, the wireless carriers, did a very good job of lobbying the Commonwealth to mandate this on local governments. What this will be is they will now have the right-of-way to put small facilities, and I'm saying small boxes, on top of our telephone poles so that they can have improved services. For us in the borough, it's really not as much of an issue because we have our wiring systems above ground. It is already becoming an issue in the Commonwealth for communities that have underground services, because what this basically allows is a wireless carrier to come to your property, install up to a 50-foot pole on your front lawn to put a receiver on there. Again, with us, we really will not notice it, other than it will give us and provide us greater services. With that, I make a motion that we adopt Ordinance 1151 of 2021 regarding the small wireless facilities.
Motion's been made. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Is there any call for discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting ordinance number 1151 of 2021 with regard to small wireless facilities as described by Councilman Robinson, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
And last on the agenda is referencing a Delaware County's Cdbg grant. I'm not sure if we have to table this or just wait until November. Our engineer is working on putting together some new numbers that could reduce our costs. I was unable to attend our workshop, but I understand there was a healthy discussion with regards to it. So we do have the opportunity and the time to still be eligible for the grant. So I would make, if there needs to be a motion, I'd make a motion to table this until the November meeting.
Mr. Solicitor, I don't believe that there is a need for a motion to table, but we'll be guided
Right,
by
but there's
our
no
advice.
underlying motion.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you're correct, because there is no motion on the table to table.
Okay,
So,
then we will hold off until November. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Does any member of council have a question or comment for Councilman Robinson? Seeing that there is none, we'll move on to Councilwoman Lisa Johnson, MBA Historic Public Safety and Civil Service.
Thank you. First item I'd like to talk about is the proposal from the NBA. They actually have two. One is to allow holiday sponsor signs, and the other is to put additional lights on the State Street district for the holidays. They created a committee to work on the decorating of State Street area and as well also to become more financially self-sufficient from the borough. So they have created these opportunities for sponsorships from the businesses, and they call it Adopt a Lamppost. So, a business can adopt a lamppost and put up a picture, a sign, I guess we'll call it a sign, that says who is sponsoring the decoration. So the money would go to the NBA and again help them to become self-sufficient. And the decorations would be put on the lampposts on State Street. So they would be attached these would be attached about at eye level so people could know who paid for the sponsorship. They're going to go up around November 22nd and stay up till January 8th. So I'd like to make a motion to accept this proposal from the NBA.
I'll second.
Motion's been made, it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the proposal from the NBA to allow holiday sponsor signs, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The other proposal they'd like us to consider is putting additional lights, these stringing market lights, the traditional clear bulbs along the lampposts on State Street, parallel State Street, as well as additional lights strung up at the Plum Street Mall. So I'd also like to make a motion to accept this proposal.
I'll second.
Motion is made, it has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the proposal from the NBA with regard to additional lights in the State Street district, this is for the holiday season, correct?
Yes,
For the
same time
holiday
frame.
season.
Sorry, I didn't
That's
say
okay.
that.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on my agenda is to ratify the mass gathering permit that we approved a while back for the domestic abuse project of Delaware County. They had a survivor celebration on October 2nd.
Second.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded twice. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. Technically what we're doing is we're ratifying a decision that we had made earlier, but this makes it official. All those in favor of ratifying the mass gathering permit application for the domestic abuse project of Delaware County as described by Councilman Lisa Johnson, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Another mass gathering permit application for the Second Baptist Church for their Media Harvest Festival, which is going to be held on Saturday, October 30th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This will close down the Manchester Avenue. Hang on one second.
Their setup time is going to start at 8 a.m. The event starts at 10 a.m. and stops at 4 p.m. and breakdown will be finished by 6 p.m. We're going to have about 12 different exhibits on wellness, community services, crafts, and other items of that nature.
Second.
Oh, no.
I take it a motion has been made,
Sorry, I thought someone was talking to me.
and it's been seconded. I have a question. You mentioned it's Manchester Street. Between which streets will it be closed?
It would be State Street and Baker, I believe.
Okay.
So was there not a suggestion that they use the Manchester Arc?
Yes, and we did talk to the church, and they said the way they have their festival set up, they're going to do activities on their lawn, and they're afraid that if they did other activities in the park, it would be too far apart. So they wanted the activities on their lawn to be alongside the activities in the street.
Okay.
And they do know that the Halloween parade is that same day. And they're actually hoping to use that to encourage people to come in and come to their festival.
Okay, well, sounds like the due diligence was done. Any other comments or call for discussion concerning this motion? I'll call the question then. All those in favor of issuing a mass gathering permit to the Second Baptist Church for their Harvest Festival on Saturday, October 30, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We also need to ratify another decision we made recently to advertise for full-time police officers and to commence examinations of these officers. So I make that in a form of motion.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there any discussion concerning the motion? Seeing as there's no call for discussion, all those in favor of ratifying the decision for the Civil Service Commission to advertise for full-time police officers and to start examining them, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. There's one item that's not on my agenda that I forgot to mention to Brittany. I think we need to ratify the promotion of Macalucci.
Well, it's not on the agenda, which means,
We have to
It's
vote
just
on
listed
it.
there. Just want to say that it is on the agenda, just underneath personnel.
oh, okay.
Oh, good, I'm all set. Okay, thank you, I'm finished.
All right, thank you. Does any member of council have any questions or comments for Councilwoman Lisa Johnson? Seeing that there are none, we'll move along to Fair Trade Farmers Market Shade Tree Environmental Advisory Council, which is the bailiwicks of Vice President Amy Johnson. Vice President Amy Johnson is not here tonight. I will turn to our manager. Is there any announcements or anything that Vice President Johnson had requested that you deliver tonight?
I do not have any particular announcements from Vice President Johnson. There was one piece of information from Shade Tree that she asked me to circulate, so I will do that via email, just about the sapling program and how we've gotten our saplings now, and so we're going to be promoting that through the Shade Tree Commission. So I'll circulate that via email, but no other announcements.
Thank you.
But Brian, you do know that you would tell us all to go to the farmer's market
Yes.
every Sunday from 10 until So, it's almost Thanksgiving. Go get your goods.
It is a great place to be on Sunday mornings. All right then, so we'll move along to Community Development and Historic Architecture Review Board. That's my portion of the agenda. Vice President Pro Tem Kevin Boyer will call motions during my portion of the agenda. As to announcements, there is one announcement. It's wish I had more definition to this, but we don't. Last month I announced that we expected, or we hoped, that the representative of the county government would come to our Community Development Committee meeting this coming week, this coming Tuesday, to discuss their thoughts about the lots on Orange Street. There are two lots where the juror parking lot formerly sat, but as we know, in the summer of 2018, there was a partial collapse and the building, because of structural integrity issues, was completely demolished. We have been in conversation with the county for some time now. Those conversations have been a bit slow over the past year and a half because of COVID and other priorities. But the county had advised us that it was nearing the point where it was ready to begin discussing what it would like to see at those two lots. We're hopeful that would be this coming week, but we don't know if the county is going to be ready to meet with us this coming week. So we won't know probably until the end of this week, or maybe not even until Monday. So those of you who were interested in attending the CDC meeting for that reason, please keep a sharp eye out on the Borough website for any announcements as to whether or not this item will be discussed at the CDC meeting. In fact, this is the only item that would be in our agenda. So if there is not going to, if the county is not ready to meet with us this month, then there will not be a CDC meeting held this coming week. So keep a close eye out on that if that's of interest to you. Item number 2 is Resolution 2021-40. This is with regard to a bicycle connector trail. This would go as a county initiative that would look to build a bike trail or a connector trail from Smedley Park over to Mineral Hill. So from the east side of Media all the way over through Media and over toward past the west side of Media. And what this resolution is just, it simply memorializes our willingness to participate in the implementation of that program. It doesn't commit us to anything. It merely says that we're on board with this project, generally speaking, but it doesn't commit us to any specifics. So I move that we adopt Resolution 2021-40, which effectively pledges our participation in the implementation of that bicycle trail study.
Second.
I was going to say the motion's been made. Is there a second? There is a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
No, this is just a study, right?
They're seeking a grant to start to implement the study. So it's actually could potentially something could potentially happen as a result.
Are there any other questions on the motion?
At this point.
I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 2021, pledging participation in the implementation of the Media Smedley Connector Trail, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. All of those say no. Motion passes.
Item number 3 on my portion of the agenda is with regard to the wayfinding project, which has been in the works now for about 6 years or so. And we've been fortunate enough to put together a very effective wayfinding plan that received considerable support, grant support. So we are close to executing on that plan. But there was an issue that arose with regard to intersections on Baltimore Avenue. I'm looking over at the borough engineer because he's the one who brought it to our attention. And in our workshop meeting, Mr. Mattson described to us what the issue was, and he also described for us what or suggested to us an approach that he would like to take to see if we can get a little bit more answers, to understand a little bit better where things stood with that aspect of the plan. So, Mr. Mattson, have you learned anything over the past 2 weeks with regard to the intersection component of the wayfinding plan?
Certainly, Mr. President. So just some background. There are 8 intersections that were originally scheduled that we received grant funding to implement what are very attractive looking stamped asphalt crossings at intersections along Baltimore Pike. So I'm sure residents at home or here have seen these throughout the county. They do look very nice. You'll see them in Springfield. You'll see them in some other municipalities. We had a bid item which was in range of our original bid that we received back in May. The contractor has come back with a request for a change order because the statement, and again, I do find the statement credible, is that the paving has to be of a certain quality in order for this surface application to go down. The change order came in at $198,000. And again, a little bit of research on this one was to go back to the grant tours and see if they had any other ideas or if there were any other ways to move this forward. Again, in the conversations we had with the grant agency, their recommendation was to say, if you can't get all 8 intersections, see if you can work with the contractor to reduce it down to 4 and work within the budget that you have. And that way we could reapply for grants at some point in the future. So this is more or less what this is. But tonight, I don't recommend the council adopt this particular change order, this request that is in front of you tonight for $198,000.
All right, so our engineer has advised us not to move forward with this aspect of the wayfinding program, at least not now. And I take it that the grant money otherwise will be available to us if we downsize the project in this way. So, relying upon our engineer's advice, I am not going to make a motion with regard to item number 3 on my agenda. Any member of council, if they believe otherwise, certainly can make the motion at this time.
I think it's a good idea we listen to our engineer for right now and take this up at a later date.
Yes.
All right, unless there's any other comment about that, we'll move on to items number 4 and 5. Before I do that, I forgot to mention something with regard to item number 1. That is the announcements, and I mentioned about that the CDC is not going, CDC meeting for next week is still a little bit up in the air. But I just wanted to address something that I've heard out in among residents. A number of residents have asked, well, while the county is figuring out what to do with those lots on Orange Street, why don't they just pave them over and let people park there? The answer to that is we can't. The fill, the stuff that's in the holes right now just isn't strong enough to support the weight of cars. You can park cars on there, but they would likely sink into the tarmac. This might sound a little bit silly, but keep in mind that when that fill was put in, the idea was that there would be a replacement structure for the jury lot. So the idea was to put something in there that could easily be taken out in connection with a rebuild project. That was the thinking at the time, and we'll find out a little bit more from the county, if not the end of this month, and hopefully by the end of next month, whether it is that they would like to convert some of one or both of those lots into parking, a surface parking. And if they do that, they have to scoop out all that fill and put new fill in there. So that's why it is that what seems like a really simple fix actually isn't a simple fix. Okay, item number 4 and 5. They're related in that they're both zoning variance requests. I think that we have representatives from both of these applications in the audience. We have Mrs. Aqua, who is here for 600 North Monroe Street, and we have Ms. Coldiron here for 236 East 2nd Street. Since 600 North Monroe Street appears first on the agenda, we'll go there. This is a request to build a 10-foot addition on the back of an existing home. The home is located on the northwest corner of 6th and Jackson Streets? Monroe. Thank you. I don't know why I keep doing that, but I always do. I get my presidents mixed up. The former presidents mixed up.
It's in the northwest.
Northwest. So across the street from you, but on your side of Monroe.
Okay.
This is a home that many of us would recognize if we were standing in front of it. It has quite a lovely garden, side garden with many succulents and a garden out the back. But what is really unusual about this home is something that's not apparent unless you are looking at architectural drawings. This is in a district where a twin, the width of a lot on which a twin is located, it needs to be 35 feet. This lot actually is 15 feet, so it's extremely, extremely narrow. And that's, but for it being such an extremely narrow lot, there would not be a need to go before the zoning hearing board. This is another example of how it is that our zoning code isn't always a very good fit for our community. Most of our community was built out before we adopted our first zoning code sometime in the 30s. This is a building that predates our zoning code. And like many homes, including mine, it just doesn't comply with the zoning code that was applied later. So this was heard by the Planning Commission a couple weeks ago, and they agreed by in a unanimous vote that Borough Council not oppose the requested variance. I agree. I don't see that what's being requested. It's a very modest addition that is being requested. It was something that will fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. Many of the houses in this area, including the ones along Monroe Street, have a similar type of additions with a small deck, which this proposal also includes. So will fit with the existing neighborhood. I don't think that this is offensive to the borough's health, safety, and welfare, so I am not going to make a motion tonight that we send our solicitor to oppose this requested variance. If there is a member of council here who wishes to do so, we will observe the 5-second rule.
Brian, I just have a question. I'm assuming from what the way you phrased it tonight is that because of side yards, they don't meet the required side
That's
yards.
correct.
They're not encroaching on the existing, so they're going to just go straight back.
That's correct.
Fine. So I just wanted clarity. I think it's 5 seconds.
I was counting down. I just got to 5 Mississippi. We'll then, Ms. Aqua, you will be before the zoning hearing board this coming next Thursday. Next Thursday. So good luck to you there. Last item on my agenda is a variance request for 236 East 2nd Street. This is a property that is almost at the corner of East 2nd Street and Haldeman. It fronts onto East 2nd Street. Back end is Emerald Street. For those of you who are aficionados of the borough map, but Emerald is a very small little alleyway. What is on this current property is a single-family home. It is a very modest family home. It's a little Cape Cod. As I recall, it's roughly about 1,200 to 1,300 square foot. Do I have that right? You can nod your head. Yeah. Just put that in context, the square footage of the average home in the United States is 2,500 square feet. So it's about half the size of the average home that we're used to here in this country. The owner of the property would like to build an addition that would come out the back. It would be a 2-story addition. It would keep to the lines of the existing structure. It would allow for a more usable downstairs space, and allow for increased bedrooms on the second floor. So they need a variance because the proposed addition would keep the same side yard setbacks, but they currently don't conform. There also is an increase of over 25% of the current non-conformance, which, when you think about it, is understandable because it's such a small home that even by putting in a modest addition, you are increasing the square footage by more than a quarter of the existing structure. And then lastly, they would be increasing the amount of impervious coverage beyond that which is permitted under our code. Our planners heard this application, and again, they agreed unanimously that Borough Council not oppose the requested variance. with a condition, and the condition was that the applicants would agree to a robust set of stormwater runoff measures that would be recommended by our engineer. And our engineer indicated that he would be willing to work with the homeowners to that end. Do I have that correct, Mr. Manson? All right, so again, our role is to decide whether or not to send our solicitor to the zoning hearing board meeting next week to oppose this. I am not inclined to make such a motion, but any member of council may do so, again, observing the 5-second rule.
Okay, I just have a question.
Sure.
So, the condition that you have, how would that be, how would you know if that's working?
Well, there are a number of, we would of course be relying upon Mr. Masson, but there are a number of things that have already been recommended by the planners and the applicants have already agreed to. There is a parking pad in the back, which extends from one side of the lot to the other side. It's full length. The applicants agree that they don't need a full length pad there. They will minimize that. And as I recall, you'd be willing to remove one of the accessory structures for the back?
One of the sheds?
One of the sheds, yeah, that's what we say in normal. Okay. And our engineer suggested swales as well as some water retention. I forget the technical term, Mr. Masson. Essentially, places where water can go where big
So I guess
basins of
my
water.
question is, does this mean the application would be changed to show that they will only be doing X, Y, Z and not?
It would be on the condition would be written as part of the zoning hearing board's decision, so it will be binding on them.
Okay.
And the goal here is to make the property neutral with regard to stormwater runoff with the addition on it. So it wouldn't generate any more stormwater runoff than what currently comes off the property.
I think the councilwoman's question, though, is fair in the sense that she's asking, when we impose a restriction or a condition on our lack of doing something, how does that get translated to the zoning hearing board such that they know that that was what we said and that they will act on it? How does that occur?
That's fair. I misunderstood, Councilman Dixon. So it's communicated by one of a couple of ways. I will be present, and I will communicate it. Also, Mr. Jeffrey, our Chief Code Enforcement Officer, is present at the zoning hearing board meeting. He will be fully informed about our action or non-action tonight, and he also will communicate it to the zoning hearing board. All right, so 5-second rule observed, and there is no motion. So good luck this coming week. Mr. Massett, is there anything that you wish to say? You looked a little bit pensive over there.
No, it was just a question about the date of the zoning hearing board. It might be helpful to have this issue resolved, so an exhibit can go to the zoning hearing board. That way it can be just entered into the record. So if there's a sketch or, that's great. So I'll connect with the homeowners and their team.
Thank you, Mr. Massett. That completes my report for this evening.
Are there any questions for President Hall?
Okay then, we'll move along then to Recreation and Board of Health. That's Councilman Kevin Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one brief message regarding Board of Health. I did speak with Lori this week, and she's of a strong opinion that the county will not be ready to roll out health inspections by January or February. It's probably more like maybe spring to summer. So at a workshop next month, we'll have to discuss what we want to do with Lori, and I think what we had recommended was somehow retaining her in the meantime until the county is up and running with their inspection. So I'll bring that to workshop next month. Regarding rec, there was a survey and there was some discussion among the members of rec regarding the pickleball, I don't want to say controversy, but the pickleball discussion. And the consensus is that we are going to paint one tennis court with pickleball lines when it's being repaired. There's a court that has a crack in it, and we're looking at having it repaired. It would make sense, since it's being repainted, to then try the pickleball lines on that court. And it's doable. I've seen many pictures where you can exist with both of them. The pickleball lines will be different color, so it shouldn't be confusing to people who play tennis. So we'll see how that works, and if that goes well, then we can at some point convert the other course in the other court in the future. So anyway, so hopefully that won't upset tennis players, but I think you can coexist. I'm hoping that will get to a good place with each other. Right now, for the first time, there is a craft box on the porch of the parlor for people who would like a craft. This is in lieu of the Halloween party, which we're not having again this year through rec, but the members came up with the idea of putting together what they call a craft bag, and as of, I think earlier today, there were about 30 of them left. I'm not sure how many there are now, but any borough resident is free to come grab one, and it's obviously for children, but if you want to go craft with your older, nobody's preventing you.
What are
You know, I honestly don't know. I saw the text. I know there's a box, and they talked about ordering like a craft setup. So I don't know. Maybe we'll check it out when we leave and see if there's a bag on the porch. But they were. There was a picture of a young lady who was very happy with her bag. So it is being received and they're being distributed. And again, we had thought about doing it last year, but it wasn't really a good idea with COVID. And this year we feel a bit safer. But we are not having the traditional Halloween party, but there will be the parade. But that's not right. We are going to have a Halloween house decorating contest as we did last year. So if your house is decorated, on the 28th and the 29th, rec members will be driving around the borough, and they will decide who gets first, second, and third, and there will be gift cards that will be given to the recipients. So if you still want to decorate, there's still time. You have until next weekend to do that. The Christmas extravaganza, I believe, is going to be on November the 27th. I looked on the borough calendar and I couldn't find it, but I think tentatively that's when the date will be, but I'll make a more firm announcement next month in November. We are planning to do, at least as of now, the Christmas party, which we started doing a few years ago, so stay tuned for that. We currently have 2 openings on the rec board for members. One of the current discussions was whether we should have a junior member. And Mr. Scott, is there anything in the bylaws about what a minimum age has to be on a commission?
That's a good question. We'll take a look while we, I don't think, well, you know what, I believe it would have to be, generally, board officials have to be electors, which means registered to vote.
So they'd have to be 18, yeah. So there was some discussion, and we'll continue that, but that was, the members were interested, whether they could bring in maybe somebody in high school or even younger as a junior member who want to participate, so.
Mr. Scott, I know a couple of my clients, they have non-voting youth members on it, and it's there so you can get their input.
Yeah.
The vote really isn't that significant. I think we all
Exactly.
recognize.
Yeah, I think we just
It's more
need
allowing some input from somebody of their age.
You can certainly do it that way, you know, but could you have a full voting member? I think they'd have to be 18.
That was under the impression I was under as well, so but I will let them know that they can bring in. We've always recruited volunteers, and we always need help at events, so I think certainly young people are always encouraged to participate that way. In fact, that's a good way to get community service for those of you in high school who need that. So when we have upcoming events, that's something to be aware of. That might be very helpful. The matter of or item of business I have for tonight is to reluctantly accept Sean Sujan's resignation from the rec board. Sean has been on the board for a very long time. He was still on it when I was on it. That was years ago. So I would imagine it's at least 15 years that Sean served. It might even be more. But I reluctantly will make a motion to accept his resignation.
I'll second.
Motion is made. It has been seconded. Is there any discussion concerning the motion? Seeing that there is none, all those in favor of accepting with resignation, with regret, the resignation of Sean Sujan from the Recreation Board. His term expires at the end of December of 2023. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
I am going to reach out to Sean and see if he'd be willing to come to a meeting and be recognized, because as I said, he did put in many years. He was instrumental in organizing trips. He's the one that's done the Spirit of Philadelphia. he was also the impetus behind the Halloween or the Christmas extravaganza, which we started doing a few years ago. So he's been very useful, been a really great member of REC. We're sad to see him go, so we'll see if we can recognize him at a future meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Does any member of council have any question for Mr. Boyer?
Yes. So the senior luncheon, which we did not have last year,
Yes.
does this mean we're not having a senior luncheon this year?
Well, there won't be one on November 2nd because it's a little too soon. Maybe in the spring? Would that be acceptable?
Can I say, okay.
Well, I don't bring it up, I mean, I did suggest that, and you're right, we didn't do it last year, and, yeah, I guess we did do it.
The year before, we did Spazzo, and as a matter of fact, Mayor did a really good job of it, welcoming people.
I know it's always well received, and we want to start doing it again, we just have to figure out what a good time is.
Everybody's asking me.
But with COVID, with senior citizens being more vulnerable, we figured putting them all together in a little room is not a good idea in the immediate future, so. We will do it, we'll just have to discuss whether we want to do it in the spring or simply wait till next fall.
Well, suggest,
Smart idea, Mr. Boyd, so we all for a bit.
Yeah.
COVID and seniors.
Yeah, so anyway, we will do it, it's just, obviously, it's not a good time to do it, so we'll come back.
Wait a second, 55 plus, how many of you here fit that? Okay.
Yes, I know I'm eligible, but I have to kind of face reality and I have to wait.
All right, here you go.
Are there any other comments or questions for Councilman Boyer? Seeing that there are none, we'll move on to Finance and Library. Councilman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just first, an announcement. I'd like to thank anyone that may have attended the fall book sale at the Media Upper Providence Library. My understanding is it went quite well. I was planning on attending on Saturday morning at 10 when it opened, but the line was too long, so I waited till Sunday. But thank you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you all come back in the spring. It is the principal fundraiser for the library. Before I talk much about the budget and announcements thereof, I'm going to ask for ratification of our September bills. From the general fund, we drew $887,289.78. From the recreation fund, $5,378.68. And from the capital fund, $401.46. I move ratification of September's bills.
Second.
Motion's been made, it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing that there's no call for discussion on the motion, I'll call it. All those in favor of approving the payment of the borough's bills for the month of September 2021 as specified by Councilman Williamson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the rest of my words will be just discussion, no action items. I wanted to talk about where we are in the budget process, both for this year and for next year. In 2021, we made some assumptions that have mostly borne themselves out as to what kind of revenues would be up and down, and what sort of expenses would be up and down. We find ourselves near the end of the year in the black, and we may end up with a small surplus. The principal reason that may occur is because of other things you've heard about tonight. We are lacking police officers in this town right now. And the lack of paying for their salary has been one of the principal reasons that we have some extra money in our budget this year. So good and bad news there. For 2022, the budget process is in earnest now. We've heard from both the department heads, from the staff, and from the external agencies that make this borough thrive as to what they may be looking for borough monies next year. From the borough itself, we found the focus is going to be on upgrading this borough hall complex. There's a lot of deferred maintenance here, especially in the police section of the building. A lot of money is going to be spent there next year. We're going to be continuing to implement some of the traffic calming and recommendations and stormwater improvement recommendations from those two plans that we have had completed in the past. We hope to have a redo of the borough website started. And most importantly of all, I think, both in terms of impact on the town's safety and the town's budget, is an attempt to replenish as much as possible those missing police officers. So that's the internal stuff that's going on. Externally, we sort of have two groups of roughly organized, two groups of major outside groups that we find, and smaller ones. These major groups take the form of nonprofits and authorities, and the fire company are all in this group. It includes the library, the Media Arts Council, the Media Business Authority, and the Media Youth Center, as well as the fire company. Putting aside the fire company for this year, their requests to the borough this year are about $375,000, those grouped together, which represents about a $100,000 increase over what we gave those groups as a whole last year. There's also a series of smaller groups like the Fellowship House, the Fair Trade Commission, the Media Theater, Transition Town Media that always requests funding from us. But that's in total around $30,000. So the significance of those funds is much less than those other groups, which actually ask for quite a bit of money from us. A third exterior group that's sort of special to this year, but really bears mentioning, is Keep Media Green. And their request to the borough to ask the borough to set aside both operating and capital money to implement some of the findings of the open space plan, which is in its final stages before adoption probably next month. So that's a potential source of additional expense that is being determined today. Like, what exactly can we afford to put toward that effort? But the main change this year is in the fire company, and that's been mentioned by Councilman Robinson at the beginning of the meeting. They need to have paid staff during the day, or the safety of the borough will suffer. They've been warning us of this for years. They've tried to hold off. They cannot anymore. The cost potentially for the borough, just for the staff there, is about $300,000. An increase from what we give them already. We already give them about $300,000 a year. This would about just double it if we just gave them that. But they have other requests as well that they always do every year. So all told in my math, it's about $500,000 of extra money that the fire company is seeking this year. That's very significant to a borough that's budget is only about $10 million. So, a lot of stuff's going on all at once right now. The borough staff is putting together all those requests into a draft budget. It will probably have a red number at the bottom, and it will be up to the Finance Committee to work with the staff to try to get it down to a number that works for everyone. The Finance Committee is going to have future meetings. The next scheduled one is on Tuesday, where we're going to start the discussion of whether we might need to increase revenues to meet all these demands on our budget, whether we might just have to cut things, or how we might use the $600,000 in federal money that we've received half of now and we'll receive the other half of next year. All these things are things that we need to consider, and we will be considering as the process of the budget moves toward a final budget in December. I think you're going to be seeing a draft budget in November that's not quite as far along as it's been in years past because of all these pressures on it this year. I hope it will be farther along, but I can't promise anything. That's the extent of my remarks, and I'll take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Does any member of council have any questions or comments for Councilman Williamson?
Mr. Rose, it's more of a suggestion that once the initial draft budget is put together, and as you referenced, it will be in the red, I would encourage that it be presented to all council so that we get an opportunity to provide recommendations and/or suggestions to the Finance Committee. So it's not, so the Finance Committee is not completely responsible for the cuts or changes or modifications. This is a decision that all council needs to be involved in, and you are right. I mean, most years, we're looking at, knocking something off here, adding something there, and it's really not that significant. We've been very fortunate with regards to our budget. But as you referenced, this is a change, and I think we're going to have to recognize that change, and, with all due respect, I'm thinking that down the road, 4, 5, 6 years, that from daytime, it may have to go to nighttime. I'm hoping, as I referenced earlier tonight, I hope that we may be looking at alternatives. The state is looking at, as I referenced, the ability to create a countywide fire authority, which might not be a bad idea, for all the communities. If we're having a difficult time, I guarantee it, there are other communities that are having a difficult time. So we may need to take a look at that. But I just would encourage it, when you get the first draft done and it's all in red, send copies out so you might be able to get comments from us.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem at all, Councilman.
All right, any other comments, questions, suggestions for Councilman Williamson? We'll move along then to Personnel, Public Relations, and Historical Archives. Councilman Dixon.
Okay, first, I'd like to just take up something legislative, and that's the ratification of the promotion of Matt. Bellucci is as the rank of sergeant in the Media Police Department.
I'll second
And
that.
thank you.
Motion's been made, it has been seconded. Is there any comment or discussion concerning the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of ratifying the promotion of Matt Bellucci to the rank of sergeant for the Media Police Department, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes.
Okay, so there's just a couple of things about what's going on with publicity. I mean, the other day on the radio, I'm hearing the oldie station. I listened to the oldie station, and they did some wonderful compliments about media theater and how wonderful it was. And later in the day, when I'm driving home, they're on again talking about media theater. So I know that for the oldest station, media theater is a real winner. And we're going to be going there as they're doing Mamma Mia. And so we will be going to see that production. The Town Talk, of course, did some things on the mayor's. He didn't even know it was there. And Adam Levin, I tell you, I hear nothing but how marvelous what he's doing with the heritage. Yeah, you see the head shaking? And so, and considering all that he has to do, or he does, and how the archives people, including you, are just doing a fabulous job. I wish I could be more descriptive, but at any event, know that people are working on things for keep us the best place. Where are we right now? Listen,
Best place to retire in the United States.
Yes.
Top 10, I think.
We're number 7.
We have
Number
7?
7.
Oh, okay. That's all my comments, and good.
Thank you. Does any member of council have any questions or comments for Councilwoman Dixon at this time? Okay, if there are none, we now have the opportunity for the public once again to come before us and tell us what's on their mind. First, Karen Rapino, have we received any email comments or questions since we began tonight's meeting?
No.
All right, good. So those folks who are with us this evening, if you wish to come ask a question or make a comment, please come to the microphone. Tell us who you are, where you live, what's on your mind. All right, doesn't look as if we have any takers. So I hope that folks out there have a safe and happy Halloween. We'll see you next month. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I hear that? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Good night.